Well, welcome to We Don't Color on the Dog. We've got with us Congressman Jimmy Patronis. Congressman, thank you for doing this today.
Where did you get the name We Don't Color on the Dog?
You'll appreciate it. I get a phone call from my daughter, and she says, Dad, I never thought I'd have to tell Brooks, which is my grandson, I never thought I'd have to tell him this. We don't color on the dog. That became the name of the podcast. So it
That's
fit.
awesome. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to catch up with you because this news about the Blue Angels, one, getting more money for that hangar that was damaged during Hurricane Sally, but also getting that amendment that makes sure that we stay their home. Talk a little bit about that, Jimmy.
Yeah, so here it was interesting. Once I got to DC, a lot of the new members. Well, and let me back. I get there to DC, and I'm a restaurant guy. I'm a customer servant at heart. So I start discovering all these members of Congress that either trained at Pensacola, they trained at Edmond, they trained at Herbert Field, they trained at the dive school over in Panama City, they flew out of Tyndall, and so many of these airmen their kids were born in Northwest Florida. So I find this affection of all these members that have kind of like an alumni to Northwest Florida for their military training. You throw on top of that all the members of Congress from Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, they all vacation with their families down with their closest beaches. So I'm starting to realize this network there. And so as I'm starting to learn their version of the stories of the military missions and what history they've had here, I'm starting to kind of create a little notebook. And I start to learn that there's members of Congress who have a fond affinity for the Blue Angels that would love to have the Blue Angels in their backyard. And so, most recently, and I don't know if it's ultimately going to happen or not, but you had out of Texas, I believe it was actually with Ted Cruz, put some language in the one big beautiful bill that was to relocate the space shuttle from the museum outside of Dulles Airport to Texas. Okay, so just as simple as that, with a simple stroke of the pen, you could move something as complicated as a space shuttle, or you can move something as storied as the Blue Angels from one part of the country to the other. So the goal was to create, some extra protections in place. So ultimately, that language was filed. It did not get adopted, but what happened is I got assurances from the leadership. Look, Jimmy, this we understand, and actually some of the members who trained there came and said, Jimmy, there's no way we're going to let the Blue Angels leave Pensacola. So it was a way to do a little wake up call to the system. The money that went in to protect the hangars, that made it. And again, those same members that wanted to make sure the Blue Angels, at least in their opinion, were going to be protected to stay in Pensacola, they helped me get the dollars across the finish line to go to restoration of that hangar. So it's kind of fun making friends with some of these folks that love the Blue Angels, because how the Blue Angels touched their lives as they grew up or trained in Northwest Florida.
Yeah, Jimmy, that's interesting because it's difficult from the outside to figure out did that amendment get added or not. But you're saying that it didn't make it to the bill, but you've got pretty strong assurances out of the
Yeah, and so, but it's, I don't think I'm going to necessarily walk away from it.
uh
So the rules committee is where it was supposed to be adopted. The rules committee ran to about 2 o'clock in the morning that night. It was a painful, frustrating meeting because of the Democrats, and look, we got some members of Congress that sometimes they don't think about the good of the country. They think about the good of themselves. And so they're constantly trying to create a different pathway until they get assurances from the president or love from the president. So there's just some interesting personalities in the process. But the chair of the rules committee said, Jimmy, you know what? We were overwhelmed. You know what? Just understand that you've got my assurances that we'll continue to work on this. So you know what? I've got another chit to call in when I want to. I just got to continue to stay, diligent on making sure that type of language is top of mind awareness. But they also know that Jimmy's a newly elected member of Congress. We need to make sure that seat stays in healthy Republican hands for in the future. So we can't do anything that's going to be a detriment to Jimmy's success in taking care of his constituent.
You you had to come in running. I mean, the election was April 1st.
Hmm.
You're sworn in pretty quickly. I know you've had to play some catch up just in getting set up, like constituent services and just the things that I mean, Matt had some pretty good infrastructure, but he also had been away for a while, so you've had some challenges.
So Matt had a little bit of a different way of connecting with his constituents. He was an incredible communicator,
Hmm.
whether it be through his social media, his TV, his radio that he was doing. He had developed a solid following and kind of created, you might as well call it a brand. So with that, there was a lot of members in the district that got their box checked or their nourishment from Matt's way he engaged them. And so, what I wanted to do is just kind of triple down on the way I'm wired. I'm wired to solve problems, always have been. So, I got a video sent to me today by the staff over in Crestview. The Crestview office is about to be open. We're going to be at the Crestview Northwest Florida State College campus location there.
That's great.
Our office in Pensacola is going to be at the State College over by the airport. It's going to be the mothership. They had to do a few construction changes to the location there at the Pensacola location, and then it should be, both operations should be fully wide open in the month of August. But I like face-to-face meetings. I like our staff being able to fix problems. And, I tend to fight hand-to-hand combat on the ground as opposed to 50,000 feet.
Oh, you're that restaurant guy.
Yeah.
You deal with the customer right then. You don't have time to wait for the Yelp review to come back. You
Sure.
have to do it right away.
Well, and so Rick, it was really cool this week. We had some time to kill. So I go back to the office and I just started answering the phone. And the main thing I wanted to do is I wanted my interns to see that, hey, it's not beneath me to answer the phone when the phone rings. And so I started answering the phone. I wanted them to hear how I talk to the constituents. I had a fellow from Pensacola call. He is a retired Air Force. No, I think he was a Navy aviator, but he was also a commercial airline pilot. And so he gave me his points on the bill. I never told him who I was. I just wanted to hear him out. He gave me his points on the bill of what he thought some of the strengths and weaknesses were. But then at the end, he told me something that really flattered me. He says, thank you. He says, every time I've called your office since you've been in office, a real person has answered the phone. And that got me excited to hear that. So then I made all the interns come into the office. And then I introduced myself to him. And so he was surprised I was the one answering the phone. I said, so would you just please repeat what you just told me? And they got to hear it from the constituents. I want them to understand how important it is that we work for every one of these folks, and they will say thank you and they will say please sometimes, as opposed to maybe, venting their frustration.
Well, I think this is breaking news to be able to open up your constituent offices, because I knew that was a high priority for you.
Yeah.
I also knew you had your hands full from the second you got sworn into office. So I'm glad that is you get more and more information on the Pensacola office. Let me know about it, because I'd like to be able to get that out, because there's a lot of concerns in the district. We're going through a lot of changes, and your office is sort of the point person for a lot of them.
Well, and you get DOGE. Look, and we've got a lot of government employees in CD1 because of how large of a presence the military installations have. So you get a lot of bad information out there. You get people misinterpreting what the DOGE rescissions were and how they, so like we cut over $9 billion through rescissions. We clawed back. The anxiety part, I know we were supposed to be talking about more to the defense appropriation, but let me talk a little bit about the rescission.
You and I have known each other, Jimmy. We could talk. So
yeah, thanks. But the president, as were a lot of members of Congress, they were frustrated how public radio and PBS had colored outside the lines when it came to political speech, and said, guys, look, you're supposed to be, a nonpartisan way to communicate, not putting a political agenda in part of your content. So, every once in a while, Daddy always said, if you want to get somebody's attention, you get into their pocketbook. And this is the exact same thing the president and Congress side do is, all right, so you know what? We're not going to put you out of business, but we're going to claw some money back from you. It's no different with some of the stuff with USAID where, they were sending money to build electric buses in Nepal. Okay, why is that a priority of Northwest Florida to go and create electric buses in Nepal? I don't think it is. So we claw that back. But you do get some anxiety because there are those purists in the process that feels like we have a separation of powers, the House of Representatives, where the appropriation process starts. You know what? We say how the money's to be spent. The president is simply supposed to spend it. It's not supposed to be the other way around when the president says, I'm not going to spend this money. Congress, I will expect you to take it back. So you had some people that get spun up over jockeying the balance of powers and again, doing things that were not normally standard operating procedure. But it was a good exercise. I'm glad we did it. I hope we do more of it.
Well, and I think as we see what it means, like you're right, we have a lot of government jobs here. We have a lot involving veterans here, their care. That's always been a priority. But we still got to sift out, and that's my approach has been. This isn't sports radio. I don't have to predict a score. I just have to watch and see how it unfolds. So I'll be leaning on you a lot just to try to understand what's happening.
Please do. Ground truth whatever you need to with us.
Okay.
And there were some people that took the letters that DOGE sent out about the early retirement. You know, it didn't say you were fired, okay? It just gave you an option. If you wanted to early retire, you wanted to take this ability to work from home and cash out, you had the right to. We had a lot of people call us saying, what do we do? And our attitude was, if you need your job, you need to stay right where you're at. So we didn't tell anybody to go decide to quit just because you got the letter. The letter was there to give you the option.
Now, are you home now? Have y'all recessed yet?
Yeah, we have recess, but now it's going to be, and what the recess is designed to is to get us back in our districts. Right. So you'll be seeing me making the rounds around the districts over the next 30 days. Instead of working in DC, we just work at home. They keep us. Look, when I was CFO, I pretty much got to set my own calendar. That doesn't exist anymore. I mean, we're up there usually 4 nights a week, 5 days a week. And then we usually try to get home on Saturday, Sunday, get a fresh set of clothes and start all over again.
Jimmy, I appreciate you doing this. When you open up your office here in Pensacola, I'll be there. So thank you.
All right. Like I was about to say, we'll give you plenty of heads up and love to have you there.
All right. Okay. We'll end this one. We'll catch up soon. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks,
Rick. Thanks for watching, and to keep up with what's going on, be sure and subscribe. Just click on the little dog to the right and click the subscribe button. You can also like this video and click on the bell, which will notify you of new content. This really helps the channel grow. We appreciate you.